This morning, the Economic, Social and Research Institute published its quarterly economic analysis and forecast for the Irish economy. The ESRI's analysis as an independent entity is generally viewed as being one of the most authoritative analyses of the Irish economy. The ESRI certainly 3 months ago, its last forecast, was by far the most optimistic in terms of growth for the Irish economy both this year and next year. Its new forecast this morning has cut those growth forecasts. It's less optimistic, although it remains by a considerable distance the most optimistic of the major forecasters. Where the ESRI is not so optimistic is on employment and unemployment. It sees this year the number of people at work in the economy declining by 45,000. 3 months ago it thought that shrinkage would be 28,000, so it's considerably more pessimistic about employment this year. It also thinks that the rate of unemployment will rise slightly next year on the already high levels this year, so it's downbeat on the employment and unemployment prospects. The ESRI also made a number of calls to the government and the European authorities. One of them was that the government would increase the size of the budget adjustment for next year. In other words, that the 2012 budget would be tougher than is currently planned. At the moment, the government is committed under the terms of the EU-IMF bailout to a 3.6 billion adjustment made up of cutting spending and increasing taxes. The ESRI believes that the government would give itself more leeway if it increased that adjustment to 3.8, possibly up to 4 billion, and that would allow it that degree of leeway later on if the revenues if government revenues came in lower than currently anticipated. So it believes the best thing to do for the government is to emphasise a greater front-loading of the budget adjustment. A raft of new data on the economy has been published this week. They tell us different things. We can break it down in different ways. One aspect is what's going on in the domestic economy. Yesterday we found out that unemployment in August rose, not by a lot, but continued to creep upwards. It's a trend that's been in evidence for some time. Earlier in the week we saw retail sales, the amount of money people are spending in the shops, can be interpreted different ways, but is generally flat. So we're not seeing a sign the economy is picking up there. Yesterday we saw that bank lending is also flat, something that's not surprising, but it does seem that there could be a bottoming out in terms of bank lending to the private sector. We also saw this week that property prices continue to decline, and that's a worrying trend. So we bring all of those things together. One of the main manifestations that we also learned this week is that in the second quarter of the year, more people are having trouble with their mortgages. That's unsurprising as unemployment rises, property prices fall, various dynamics in the economy. With other information that we've known previously, the economy is weak, and that is making it difficult for people to repay their mortgages. All of these new figures also tell us something about what we might term financial stability of the country, and that financial stability is very much dependent on what outsiders think is going on here and whether they are willing both to invest in this country and whether they're willing to hold their money in Ireland. We saw the middle of last year that an international investor confidence in Ireland drained away very, very quickly in early September, October, which ultimately led to the bailout. Figures that were released yesterday show that foreigners increased their holdings of deposits in the Irish banking system by 4 billion. That's the biggest increase since that loss of confidence about a year ago. It suggests that it's one sign, and it's only a small sign, that international confidence in the Irish economy has at least bottomed out and may well be improving. There have been a number of positive media comments on the Irish economy in recent weeks, and the best evidence that we see of an increased confidence in the Irish economy from outsiders is the quite spectacular decline in the effective interest rate on Irish government debt. In the middle of July, this hit entirely unsustainable levels and led to that speculation that people may recall that there would be a need for a second Irish bailout. those interest rates on the benchmark bond yield hit 14% in the middle of July. They have fallen spectacularly, almost on a daily basis, including today, and now they're at a new low, back at around 8.5%. Now that's very good news, because if that trend continues, it means that Ireland will not need a second bailout. And that effectively, the reason those yields have fallen is because foreigners are prepared to buy Irish government bonds because they think the risk of default is declining. So that is probably one of the most positive developments that we've seen in recent times. Yesterday's figures on foreigners' holdings of deposits in the Irish banking system showing a rise for July, despite the extreme uncertainty that was going on in July in relation to the Eurozone, is a positive development. So on the financial stability side, in terms of outsiders' perceptions and willingness to invest in this country, there have been very positive developments in recent times.